extraordinaire, the gemologist.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Gemologist Presents. This will be a bonus episode where we just talk about recaps. I had a really great week of gaming, played in 3, ran 1. So Monday I played in the Reaver game, the Reaver playtest that is an ongoing campaign that is run by Joe Salvador of Raven God Games in preparation for his Reaver role-playing game that is coming out soon, or the Kickstarter is coming out relatively soon. And then on Tuesday, BJ Boyd of the Arcane Alienist, he ran Tales of the Valiant, and he has put his thoughts in his latest podcast, so check that out, The Arcane Alienist. On Thursday, man, we are like one session away from being done with the Horned Rat, and this was a fantastic session of Warhammer Fantasy that I run. When I recap it, there will be spoilers of the Horned Rat, which is book 4 in the Enemy Within campaign by Cubicle 7 for the Warhammer Fantasy 4th edition game. And then today we concluded the adventure, the Borderland run by His Majesty Kevin Madison of Dungeon Musings. A fantastic game, great crew. I love it. And there's going to be a transition too, because one of the crew, the player's not leaving, but the crewman is leaving onto a bigger and better things, one hopes. So I think that was a great session, a great transition. So what a cool week. And I will try to do this in one session with just the embellishments of the intro and outro music. And that's about it. I don't know if I'll be able to do it. I got about less than a half an hour, so we will see. So we will go in chronological order. The first game I played this week was Reaver. So there were like 2 major events that happened in that session. The first is that Askold, that's me, my character is Askold, he's a seer. Brutus and Wolfgar, we went to go visit Sindri the Seer, which is I guess they're called dwarves in this world, and he lives in this village outside of town where we're at. And we got some prophecy. Wolfgar wanted to learn about the beastmen that we had encountered and see if they could be turned. He had a task where he had to kill an apple out of the air with his Anglesworm and then let Sindri the Seer feed on it. And I just wanted to talk to Sindri about what I had seen in my astral journey way back in the Valley of Mists, and my payment was only for him to lick my hands. Last time I licked his, and this time he licked mine. We had a very interesting discussion, and I think it's really cool how we maybe talked about some of the elder gods and versus the new gods that are worshipped and all that kind of stuff, which was pretty neat. And I would just say Joe does a great job of world building, even the sort of cosmology that he has in his mind for his world, for the Reaver world, which I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but you'll find out soon, or maybe the next time, or maybe Joe will call in and tell us what's the name of his world. But I played in it, I've run it a few times too, and I think it's coming along really great. So then the second part, after we did that and discussed, it does turn out the Beastmen worship also one of these elder gods. Let's see, do we have the name of the elder god here? Let's see. I guess they are called Vormis. Oh, that's interesting. They are called Vormis beastmen. Can they be brought out of the darkness? Who knows? So the other thing that happened was that we had this feast from the Baron, and someone that was interesting that we talked to specifically was someone named Stymid Ordancer, who is the younger and wiser brother of Fideric Bearskull, whose city, village, whatever, we attacked and burned a bunch of boats. He considers Federic a reckless fool and impulsive, but he does stand by his family, and we felt that he pretended to be drinking and didn't, maybe to get information. And unfortunately, we did give him information because Brutus let him know that we were going to Duraxium, and maybe that's not a good idea. But anyway, we'll see what the consequences of that will be. But yeah, so that was a good session. Mostly role playing. No fighting. and a few die rolls, and it was more like talking and learning about, like I said, the cosmology of the world and plotting what's going on. Although I do have to say, Askold, I guess Askold is a little suspicious because he thought as he followed you know Stygard and his Stymond and his bodyguard out when they had to use the outhouse, and just kind of checking up on him made a little suspicious, a little wary, and he saw some sort of shadow in the dark, and he asked the guards of the citadel, fortress, whatever, I can't remember what the exact designation is, stronghold, to check it out. Maybe the dogs were loose or something like that. But so we're a bit suspicious, and then Wolfgar would try to use his magical powers to sight to see if he could detect anything or find anything. But he was interrupted by one of his henchmen, Siggy, and they started making out. So I guess we'll have to see what happens if that interrupts Wolfgar's spell. Maybe Siggy's in on it. I don't know. But that was a really good Reaver session. Like I said, a lot of role playing, not a lot of action. Well, I mean, there is action. Not a lot of fighting, I guess, no combat. But with Reaver and the world building and all that, I think it's fine. It's a fun to play and fun to learn about what's going on, and just do the talkie in character or not in character, it doesn't matter. So then we played the next day Tales of the Valiant. It was myself or BJ ran, and I decided to play a Kobold Warlock. I wanted to roll up a character. I didn't really have time, but there was a pre-gen, and I played a Kobold Warlock. It was a simple, we went to the docks. We were looking for somebody who stole something, and we had some interesting encounters. We killed some rats. We killed some little Warflings, or like little dog things. I think they're called Warflings. And then I think I remember them from another book, actually, that I helped or contributed to with Pathfinder, called Sunken Cities. And I think I believe Wolfgang Bauer and Co. It was originally an open design. Yeah, it was Wolfgang Bauer's open design, and we did it for Pathfinder. But I guess Warflings have been transported over into Midgard. I do like the Midgard universe a lot. Anyway, we explored a little bit underneath the wharf, and after dispatching of these Warflings, and we found a ratling, rat folk person, and he fit the description of the guy who had stolen the thing. So we negotiated and asked him for the thing, and I thought it was going to be peaceable, and yay, we're done, finished the adventure. My character is a really good talker, has good diplomacy and the like, and he was going to hand over the earrings that he had stolen, but then someone else made sort of a history or society roll, or the equivalent in Tales of the Valiant or 5e, I don't remember, but realized that he was worth a lot of money. So the other two players, I think there was a human fighter and a beastkin, like raccoon folk mechanic, so like the equivalent of an artificer. And they're like, well, we want this money. He's worth a lot. So then combat ensued, and it was a really good, interesting combat. He whistled for a companion, and it turned out to be this sort of rat. And we're like, oh, no problem, we'll take it out. But it turned out to be something called a doppel rat, which when you hit it, it can pop into a hole like a rat swarm, or it has an ability to create a rat swarm, like almost at will. And that was a pretty challenging fight. But my Kobold Warlock got to use his Hellish Rebuke, because I kind of goaded the creature to attack me and then went kaboom. And then someone else got a really good hit with their weapon, maybe a crit, I'm not sure. And then it fled. And in the meantime, before we finished that creature off, the rat folk had started to flee also. And my character kind of just chased him down, sent my familiar after him, and the Warlock familiar can actually attack, and it was able to finally get a hit with its stinger and knock him unconscious, put him to sleep or whatever, but he was in the water So I think he drowned because when we had to deal with this doppel-rat. But then I guess I think the person playing the Beastkin said they just took off his head, and then we turned it into the Thieves Guild and got a lot of money. So yeah, it was a good game. I really enjoyed Tales of the Valiant as a system because mainly it's by Kobold Press and it's in the Midgard world. And I always really wanted to run Empire of the Ghouls. So one of these days, maybe I'll get it to the table. Myself and a couple of my friends were able to play test some of the adventures in it, and it was like an assault on a castle that had been taken over. It used to belong to a paladin order and had been taken over by the one of the evil orders that the ghouls or the vampires in the area operate. And the other one was we got to break up a wedding between a ghoul and a vampire. And these are like intelligent ghouls, so they have an actually empire underground. So it all references and goes back to a dungeon adventure called Kingdom of the Ghouls, which is a fantastic adventure that I always wanted to run for levels 9 to 12 or 7 to 9 in dungeon, and I've always wanted to run it. And Kobold Press has like brought this idea to the table, which is kind of neat. So anyway, those Tales of the Valiant, I really enjoy it. I don't know how different it does feel. Well, it doesn't have alignment. That was kind of interesting. And I think the only thing noticeable is that first level characters have some some more punching power. I think the fighter had this ability to just like attack 3 times or something like that, which was devastating. I think we did it right, which is great. But we're still kind of squishy. Everyone had like 10 to 12 hit points, which makes it so like you can take 2 hits maybe. So yeah, and no healers. I was going to play a cleric, but I decided against it. So because I went with the Kobold Warlock. So yeah, so I think we're going to have like a mini campaign where we're going to test like every little adventure. We're going to level up and kind of test the system in a way. So anyway, pretty cool stuff. On to the next game. Like I said, I was doing them chronologically. And the next game was my Thursday group, my home group, and that was Warhammer Fantasy. And they arrived at this place called Karak Skig I think it's the Middle Mountains. And they had learned that this is where the Skaven were plotting to make some sort of device that was going to cause a lot of damage. They had already seen it blow a hole in the Brass Keep, which is a chaos worshiper of Nurgle stronghold. Again, these are spoilers for the Horned Rat, the book 4 and the Enemy Within. And then they saw Karak Skig, examined it, saw a way in that was kind of out of the way. It was crawling with Skaven and Skaven servitors, and of course the captives that the Skaven had forced into labor. So the player character saw an entrance like through the flow or the kind of like the sewer system in a way of the old dwarven stronghold. So they went into the forested area below the tree line, and they found out where they found it. But before they got there, they actually ran into like a work party of one of the Skaven who was leading a group of 5 people, or maybe it was 2 Skaven with 5 people, and they dispatched them pretty quickly, told the 5 humans to flee, and crawled into the space. And this was like, I always had this philosophy that if you have the player characters roll a bunch of stealth checks, eventually they're going to fail. But man, they were on fire, and they were able to sneak through. They ran into another work detail in the underbarrow of Karak Skig. They hid. They waited till they went back to work, started making their way up. Just observed a lot, saw what was going on. Something definitely was going on. Because of what they had done before, there was a mechanic that suggested they did get bonuses to their stealth because the Skaven were like very distracted, working over hard and trying to get their project done. So yeah, it really worked out well for the player characters, and they even kept the Dwarven Ironbreaker in check, even getting them to, I know they're not a Slayer, and the Slayers have this thing, but honestly, this player, anyway, and this player basically doesn't like his weapons taken, and plays characters who have like heirloom weapons, who don't like their weapons taken. But the other players convinced him, hey man, we can't get into a fight now because we haven't figured out what is going on exactly. So here, let's say you're a prisoner and we're taking you to the boss, and one of the characters had actually had an accident earlier in the campaign where his teeth got broken, so he had like a dentures. So he flipped them to look like some of what the Yellow Fang do is they try to mimic the Skaven. This is the Skaven servitors, this cult, and then like I said, they pretended to have this dwarf prisoner. They took his weapons temporarily, and they bluffed their way past another group and made their way further into the complex. So I think it was really good. And they did get to a fight in this great hall where they saw like another Skaven had been, it was being held captive or kind of chained to the throne in this old dwarven hold. And there was some Yellow Fang cultists sort of making fun of him, throwing stuff at him. So the player character is like, we've gone this far, let's get them. So they took him out very quickly. They talked to this guy, and they said that basically his clan, Clan Mange, had been betrayed by Clan Skyer, and they said, and then someone asked the question, what happens if we let you go? Because they had also noticed that most of the captive workers that were Skaven were Clan Mange also, had like tattered remains of uniforms and badges and stuff like that. And also they remember that Clan Mange had been sent to their death, assaulting the Brass Keep. So anyway, they use that information to their advantage. They release a guy because he said he's going to start a revolt. And they're like, okay, great, distraction. So if we start fighting in the upper levels, we won't have reinforcements from the lower levels. That was pretty smart. So then as they pass through the hall, these dwarven runes lit up because one of the characters is a dwarf, and they found like a secret room. And this room had like rows and rows up on trellises of gunpowder, or the dwarven equivalent of gunpowder. They're like 500 barrels. At least 20% of them were still good, and the dwarf had also brought his own explosives and primers and charges. So he used his stuff to set it up and to have a primary explosion to create the secondary cascade of explosions. And I guess, I don't know, some of the players got what I was saying, but one of the players realized, oh man, it's going to be a big dang explosion. And they was able to set a timer. The timer was 5 minutes. And I think this was the funnest part of the session, is that like I had dice, as they were exploring, I was counting down the time with dice, and then since like when they got into combat, you can go round by round. Each round's about 6 seconds. So then that was counting down, and it was really fun as they were like rushing up to the top to see what had happened. They had gotten some other information from this Clan Mange warlord who they let go that suggested that there was a traitor human Yellow Fang cultist engineer. So they went into this area where there is a refinery. There's like, and I guess this whole mountain is like full of warpstone dust, and now they're here with like liquid warpstone being melted and used to power this contraption that they haven't seen yet. It's like some giant cannon, but they haven't quite seen it yet. But they've seen its effects, right? So anyway, so they go through the refinery area. The Skaven are so busy they're not even paying attention, but they're able to grab some plans, take a quick glance at them, then talk to the engineer, and after actually, what they do is when they found the humans like working in one of the rooms in the workshops, they just toss a couple bombs in there, kill all the non-named Yellow Fang cultists, or at least incapacitate them, and then kind of heal up the engineer or bring him not from unconsciousness but from prone up, and they pretend that they're helping him. Then they kind of talk to him, and he kind of talks about the contraption. They kind of push the right sort of diplomatic or the right button so he can brag about it, and he kind of tells them how to destroy it. So then they knock him out, and toss him into the vat of liquid warpstone. So I don't think there might be well, he's dead, so it doesn't matter. But anyway, so along with the ticking bomb, and now this kind of disruption of the pure refined warp stone, I think it would blow up anyway, or it's going to blow up. So they get to the top, and they find and they get to the top. There's this catwalk. One character goes to the right. That's Ulrich, the silver armed. He lost his arm earlier and now has a dwarven kind of mechanical arm, dwarven made mechanical arm. He goes in one direction and sees the contraption. It's this like 180-foot cannon. They learned that basically the plan was to shoot at the moon and blow it up. The moon being Morrisleb and full of warpstone, or basically a big giant warpstone, and blow it up and have all these warpstone meteorites come down. Meteors come towards the Earth, become meteorites, and blow up and devastate the world. Yay! And then Skaven let the world go into anarchy, then come up and feast upon the ruins. I guess that was a giant plan, but they would have worked except for these meddling adventurers, right? So he sees a contraption, takes a shot at it. That gets the attention of the big boss, the engineer, and he's like in almost a mini metal suit. So he jumps down, shoots this character, and this character's like runs back towards the rest of the party. Meanwhile, the rest of the party, they've been hearing as they've been climbing this gong going off occasionally, and they saw that this rat ogre, a three-eyed rat ogre, so a mutant rat ogre, was banging this gong. They engage and they fight, and then they they engage and fight, take him out. Meanwhile, the time is ticking down. They have less than a minute before this thing goes kaboom. They explore into another room and see a captive woman who they recognize as sort of the assistant head of the Collegium. They've met her before. They've hung out with her before in sort of the noble circles. And like, how the hell did you get here? She's chained to this sort of astrolab contraption guarded by 4 storm vermin. The storm vermin, of course, seeing these humans up here attack. There's a brief fight. Some great rolls by the player characters. They see that the mage is also, her foot has been cut off, and she's finally emboldened and seeing that she's going to be rescued, probably after being tortured and coerced to do this. Fires some magic, takes out actually 2 storm vermin, which really helps. Meanwhile, the character Ulrich, so those were Gurdon, the dwarf, Sebastian and Reginald, engaging this rat ogre and then finding the mage to free her. And meanwhile, Ulrich runs back. He gets hit in the back with like a lightning bolt from the Skaven engineer's halberd. And then finally on the bridge, the dwarf engages him. There's a good fight. They take him down, even though he's surrounded by even from the warp lightning halberd thing. It's hooked up to this canister and it's poison gases around. So they've definitely, I think what was great about this adventure is that they really, by the time they were here at the top, they had used a lot of their meta currency, so it made it very challenging and exciting. So they took him down. So Ulrich turned around, joined the fight, taking this guy down, and then that's kind of when we had to stop because we play it at Dragon's Lair, and it was time to go. But now, man, they got I think less than 20 seconds, and they know this thing is gonna go. So they got to figure out. They got to free the mage. Maybe this mage is a way to poof them out of the area temporarily. It's a teleport in Warhammer Fantasy. It doesn't work like teleport in like D&D. So it's like limited distance, more like a dimension door. So that the mage might have that spell. I think I saw that on their list. And anyway, but then the mountaintop's going to blow up and they're going to be like sliding down the mountain. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully this wasn't a suicide mission, but that's a Warhammer Fantasy. Finally, the conclusion of the Borderland run, and it was very exciting actually, and I can't believe, I guess we won. Most of the spotlight was on Dane Lovric, our Marine, who had so we've been transporting this Aslan noble who was falsely accused, or he was betrayed, and he was going to be executed. And our resident Marine, also the gunner, also the Marine repel border type of guy, fighter, whatever, in the crew. Uh, we we've done enough and worked our way in that Tila Toril, this noble, Aslan noble, has accepted him as his second. So we finally get to the world. We had done a brilliant jump maneuver where we basically precipitated from jump space like less than 10 diameters, not the normal 100 diameters out, but less than 10, I think within a kilometer. I think we ramped it up so that we came in like right, boom, right there almost in orbit. Caused a stir, but then, talked our way out of it and sent the information we needed to send to the proper, through the proper channels, and went to go land. So that's where we picked up this time. My character, Avargar Anchor Gavel, who's the pilot, did backed into flew spectacularly down. And when he parked, made a big flourish of it. And then we all disembark. We talk our way past the first diplomatic challenge so that the other Aslan would accept us, and especially Dane, to stand in and to speak for and to accept what information we had found for this. So that kind of stopped a big clan war, apparently, which is great. And then we had the final fight. So that still, though, Tila Toril was going to be executed. And then Dane Lovric stood in the ring with an Aslan assassin. And there was attacks and slashes, and Dane bobbed and weaved, almost got hit, and it would have been a devastating hit, but managed to dodge it. And then mechanically continue to win initiative and slice at this assassin and finally take him down with his monkey claws. It's a well-fought match. I guess Tila Toril does not have to be executed, only exiled. But Dane's going to leave the crew. And I think that was a good end point for his story with us in the Rift Wanderer, and a good end of season 1 for the crew of the Rift Wanderer on the Borderland run. It was really good, and I really enjoyed it. I do like Traveller a lot. We have our own ongoing Traveller game, which I believe I have a session of tomorrow, Monday the 29th of July, I believe. Man, I realize that RPG A Day is coming up, and I'm going to have to look at the prompts and get ready for that. So get ready for, I guess that would almost be the end of season 3 for the Geomologist Presents, and on to season 4, with RPG A Day being the demarcation point. So anyway, thank you for listening. This has been the Geomologist Presents. You can contact me, send me some feedback. What do you think of these games? Again, they were Reaver, Tales of the Valiant, Warhammer Fantasy, and Traveller. So you can reach me by sending me a message, email, or voice, and send it to geomologist@gmail.com. You can find me on the various Discords. I also have and leave me a voice message or text message there, or discussion, whatever. It doesn't have to come on the show, but it's fun to discuss. And finally, I do have a SpeakPipe account where you can leave about a 90-second message. So thank you again so much. My wife, Amy, does the cover art. Good night and good rolling.